I went from a grindy 175 kg deadlift with straps to a much smoother 205 kg deadlift with mixed grip and chalk in about 4 months. This is how I did it and how you can do it too. My name is Jake and I make beginner lifting content for people in their first 2 years of training. In this video, I'm going to show you how I manipulated 5 variables: frequency, diet, reps and sets, variations, and accessory work to improve my deadlift in just a few months. A 205 kg deadlift isn't that impressive with the amount of phenomenal lifters on social media nowadays, but I just wanted to share some simple and practical advice that can produce realistic results even if you have average genetics like me. First up, frequency. I train the deadlift 3 times a week, and this may sound like a lot, but I've found that if you want to improve your strength, a higher frequency can help. I was also focusing on my squat at the time, so I only deadlifted heavy once a week. On my first deadlift day, I worked up to a heavy single at about 90% 1RM, and then 3 back-off sets at 80% 1RM for 2 to 4 reps. Day 2 was a technique-focused day where I lowered the weight and increased the reps, 3 sets at 4 to 6 reps. And day 3 was my hypertrophy day, snatch grip deadlifts at 55% for 3 sets at 6 to 8 reps. I'll talk more about why I like snatch grip deadlifts when I go over variations later. So that's a breakdown of the frequencies I used for this 4-month training block. As you can see, I'm really only pushing the weight once a week. Focusing on technique and hypertrophy really helped me to improve my form when I was doing heavy singles. And practicing heavy singles a lot helped me a lot when I was testing my 1 rep max. In terms of diet, I ate in a moderate calorie surplus of about 500 calories a day during the strength building period. I would strongly suggest pairing a strength building block with a lean bulking phase. I hit about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's about 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. During this time, I didn't track fats and carbs. They just made up the remainder of my calories. Let's talk about reps and sets. When I was discussing frequency, I mentioned that the back-off sets on day 1 were in the 2 to 4 rep range, day 2 was in the 4 to 6 rep range, and day 3 was in the 6 to 8 rep range. What this means was, in week 1, I did a heavy single at 90% and then 3 sets of 2 reps at 80% on day 1, 3 sets of 4 reps at 65% on day 2, and 3 by 6 at 55% on day 3. Then week 2, I increased the rep scheme of each day by 1, but the weight stays the same. Week 3 was my heavy week, so I would do 4 rep sets on day 1, 6 rep sets on day 2, and 8 rep sets on day 3. Then in week 4, I would increase the weight, but go down in reps back to 2, 4, and 6 respectively for my 3 deadlift days. And basically, I would just repeat this process until I would have to deload. I would generally deload once every 5 to 6 weeks. This intentionally slow loading protocol was what I found was the best way to push back plateaus, manage fatigue, and ultimately progressively overload for longer. After my primary deadlift work, I also incorporated some variations into my training to help with different aspects of the lift. The 3 variations I used were pause deadlifts, deficit deadlifts, and snatch grip deadlifts. Pause deadlifts help you to stay braced and tight throughout the lift, and they help to build up explosivity. I like to pause just after the weights have left the ground and then finish the rep explosively. I train pause deadlifts at 2 to 4 reps in the 70% range. Deficit deadlifts increase the range of motion of the lift. I stand on a plate and use 60% my 1 rep max for 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps. The increased range of motion helps with speed off the floor, a tighter starting position, and hypertrophy of the main movers of the deadlift, namely the hamstrings, posterior chain, and the back. The last variation I did that I've already mentioned are snatch grip deadlifts. I use a conventional stance, get my hands as wide as they can go comfortably, and you'll quickly find you can't use a lot of weight when doing this movement. I found 55% was a pretty good sweet spot for me. 55% 1RM for 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps was more than enough to feel a crazy pump in my glutes and hamstrings. I think snatch grip deadlifts are really underutilized, and I think they're a great movement for a deadlift hypertrophy day. And finally, last piece of the puzzle, accessory work for the deadlift. So on this topic, let me just start by saying that if you want to get really good at deadlifting, of course you have to do a lot of deadlifting. But I also included some back and lower body accessory movements to help me build up the main movers for the deadlift. So I already mentioned I was doing a lot of squatting at this time, so I didn't do extra work for my quads, but I did do some hamstring stuff. I did seated and lying leg curls each once a week, 3 sets of about 15 reps. And I could have done Romanian or stiff-legged deadlifts, but I just felt that I didn't want to load my lower back more than I already was. I also included 1 extra back exercise every day for about 3 to 4 sets. The exercises I did were pull-ups, chest supported rows, one arm cable rows, lat pull downs, and one arm lat pull downs. With all of this accessory work, I worked up to about 15 rep sets for the rows and pull downs, and I tried to add a rep each week to each of the sets of the pull-ups. So with all of these factors in place, frequency, diet, reps and sets, variations, and accessory work, I trained for 4 months in 5-week blocks. After that, I took one final deload week, and then I tested my 1 rep max. If you want to improve your pulls, I'd strongly recommend doing what I did or taking some inspiration for what I did. My program was largely based on the deadlift protocol from Matt Venner, who is a Canadian powerlifter, and he has a brutally strong deadlift. If you do decide to do my program, let me know how you go in the comments, and until then, I'll see you next time.